Okay, hi. Welcome to A Little Room for Healing, where we talk a little bit about healing and then we do a little energy healing and then we chat a little bit more about healing. And today I have with me my friend Lily, who is also a healer. She does energy work and she facilitates um, inner child work and other healing modalities. But I think her main thing is inner child work. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
ish.
ish. Is there anything else that you'd like to me to adjust on that?
Um, yeah, I would say that I'm doing more channeling these days than inner child work.
Hmm.
Um, an inner child can still come within the channeling channel, within the bucket, but there is a bit more channeling and spiritual bend these days.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What is? Can you tell me a little bit about the channeling?
Yeah. I found over the years that I was sort of naturally channeling, but for a lot of reasons, probably because of my own process as well, I was tending to focus more on depth work and shadow work and inner child with other people, and with clients and people I was coming in contact with. Um, and the channeling aspect has sort of always been there, but I've pushed it off to the side. And so now it's coming back in a way that feels interesting, um, and exciting.
Oh, that is great.
Yeah.
I'd like to experience some of that. I probably have. Have I experienced some of that with you?
I think you have. Probably at moments, I'm thinking of a moment or two in ceremony, um, that I was doing some sort of light channeling for you.
Mm.
I've had some fear around it, so there's a sort of coming out of the spiritual closet that I'm ready to take now, ready ready to come fully out, um, and yeah, I'd be happy to channel for you.
Oh my God, let's do it. Let's do it some point. Please. That just reminded me of this moment that we had during a ceremony once where we were facilitating together and we were lying on the floor or sitting in the corner and talking about spirit guides and you were helping me tune into my spirit guides
Mm-hmm.
uh, and guiding me to feel into what energies I was feeling and also just what sense of what my spirit guide was in the space and
Mm.
uh, I was able to tune into a turtle that felt really big and grounding, and a firefly and a butterfly, and even Lao Tzu, who is actually a person, the master that brought in lahochi, uh, and you were guiding me into that, and it felt so good, and it was so playful and fun to be doing that with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. It's really, for me, I think one of the reasons also I've shied away from doing like direct channeling or calling myself that is because it's almost like I want to help open up the other person to their own ability to see and to be the channel themselves. There's a
Hmm.
lot of, um, yeah, I think there are a lot of people out there who claim this role as a channel, and it can be misunderstood or even misused. And what I'd like to be for people is a bridge for them to be their own channel. So, in just sort of holding the space and encouraging in a gentle way, that to me feels better.
Yes, that actually aligns with how I feel about facilitating someone's healing as well. Is really I want to be there as someone who's helping them facilitate how they can do the healing themselves, because ultimately they have to do the healing themselves, because it's their work. And I think a lot of people go up to healers and are maybe looking for them to do something that will just fix them, and really the work is for them to learn how to get in there and be with themselves.
Mm.
So the way that you guide people to channel feels really good to me and really healthy.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think we're coming out of the like age of the guru
Mm.
in many ways. I think we have been for some time, but it's sort of utterly obvious now. Um, and there are still people who want and need that experience of pedestalizing a healer and making them their guru, um, or making them their savior in some way. And my hope is that more of us who are on the front lines of the healing revolution, my hope is that we can continue to step up in this way and just simply act as a bridge, and allow people to come home to their innate abilities and their innate capacity, which is tremendous.
Sort of like the word I'm coming up with, a guide to empowerment, or do you have a better word for that? Like we are guiding them to their empowerment, or guide doesn't feel quite right.
I know. It's not quite it. Guide, instigate, let's let it percolate. Maybe the right word.
Support.
Yeah.
That almost seems a little too little.
Yeah.
We'll let it percolate.
Inspire. Inspire. I like that.
Inspire sounds good.
Model.
Yeah. Those are good. That whole front line, when people talk about the front line of the healing revolution, I often have had this experience of, I am not on the front line. I actually want to work in triage. So you guys go out there on the front line, and then when you need to be restored, come to me and I will help restore your energy. But I'm more and more feeling that maybe I can get out there on the front line with y'all.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that has something to do with the place where you're at, basically, and your own healing journey?
I do. I've been working with this, this part of me, this child, an inner child who has this, block on feeling. You said it so good earlier today. Maybe you can repeat it to me, but I'm going to say it how I'm going to say it, and then you repeat it back to me. I say that the child feels worthless, and has feelings of worthlessness. And you reframed that for me today so beautifully. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah. Let's see. This is, something we spoke about earlier that I think is inherent to all of us. But the way that I frame it is the aspect of us that couldn't deflect the illusion and the myth of unworthiness. So they did not have the ability to, or the skills or tools. No one taught us how to deflect or put up a barrier against that message, which is pervasive everywhere in our families, in our culture. We're fed it through the water in a way.
Mm-hmm. Oh man. And just hearing you say those words, like I get emotional, and I think that is exactly what we were talking about just a little bit ago about empowering. Like I hear that, and my little one hears that, and he feels more empowered, being like, oh, I and you, Joel, adult Joel and little Joel, have both been in the story that this kid just feels worthless. And hearing you say that, it's just that he didn't have the tools to, God, I can't even remember it. I'm having such a block. Like, this is where I am in my healing. Like, I need to have that written somewhere, so I read it every day so it becomes instilled in me.
Yeah. Didn't have the skills to deflect the myth and the illusion that was being fed to us of unworthiness.
Didn't have the skills to deflect the illusion. Yes.
Because it's just that. It's even in healing circles, and I've been a part of many, we're not even, I don't think we're talking about worthiness as an illusion, as a myth, as something that's sort of this illusory thing that maybe we'll get to one day, or maybe we'll be able to heal from. It's like, I think if we can start to frame it as that, it's almost like a ghost, like just like see it for what it is, and then we can truly see through it, because it's not real. And the experience of it in our bodies is so real, right? But there's some, obviously, as in everything, duality there, that we can lean into.
Yeah. It's so hard to hear that it's not real when it has felt so real for so long. It's such a challenge to be in that framing of it. Like my body there's something in my body that's reacting to it that's saying that is, yeah, that's so true. I'm getting goosebumps. It's so true that it's not real. I am worthy. But then that emotion that I've been holding on to, that I've been stuck in for 44 years is saying, it is true though. I am worthless. Oh,
We had to believe it. I mean, that resistance that we feel in our bodies to saying worthiness or unworthiness is a myth, that's very real, because that is the most basic form of our protection and our defense mechanism. It's our body saying, this was my experience. I had to believe this. So now you're coming in and saying this is a myth, this isn't true. No. Right? It just shakes
right.
the very foundation that we've built everything upon, in a sense. If we hadn't believed that, who knows what would have happened, right? We had to somehow, when we were children, make sense of our experiences. And so for us and whoever's listening to this, if you are recovering from childhood trauma of any form, or neglect, or, just childhood, let's just say recovering from childhood in general, there was really no other way to understand our experience than by saying there's something wrong with me. Otherwise, these people, and maybe even the world at large, would be acting differently. They would be treating me in a different way. But no one gave us an explanation, and so we went to the first thing that's fed to us that makes sense. It's just because there's something wrong with me. I'm unworthy. Done deal. And then that became our story. We bought into the myth.
Man. This is so hitting home right now, because I did create those stories. I did buy into that story, and I compounded three different wounds, three major wounds, amongst others, on top of that story, and then dissociated from my body because of all of those things compounding, being like, I'm worthless, so why would I even want to be in my body? Ugh. And then also, when you were speaking about that, what was coming up in me is, this is the discomfort of healing. This is, I think, why a lot of people shy away from the process of healing when they start doing it, or they find when they keep going that it's really an uncomfortable process, because you're taking yourself out of this frame of mind, your body's system, the way it set itself up to protect itself and to be in safety, and saying, this isn't needed anymore. But that's all you know. So you have to shift and go into an unknown and recalibrate and be in this whole new space that's going to be so foreign and feel really uncomfortable for a bit, but also feel really good, to get to the other side.
Yeah, I mean, as you speak about that, what comes up in me is two things. One, like the very real somatic experience of retraining our bodies to say that's actually not true anymore, whatever the thing is, right? Like, we're safe now, you don't have to believe this anymore, etc. But then even in our mindset and our mind, we've had to buy into this myth. And that can be so disorienting, to allow that version of reality to start to crumble. So they're quite compounded in there. And I don't think a lot of people understand how to work with that yet.
Yes. Yes. That is like, as I work with people and as I see people even starting off in their healing journey, it's part of the building blocks of just being like, first we have to set the stage of what we've been thinking is not true.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
And then how do we, the sticky part and a lot of what I work on with my clients is how can we both validate our experience and start to say there is another reality.
Mm.
So we're both saying this isn't really true and it's very true for you. And so we're having to hold both of these very delicate concepts within in order to honor all parts of us.
Yeah, it's like this isn't true, but it was necessary for your survival, which makes it true for you in that part. Oh man. I'm curious. Is there anything that you feel open to talking about your own healing journey, of things that you've had to shift from? This is something that I built as truth for my survival. Now realizing that it's not true, and I'm leaning more into what is this new truth that I'm living in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to share. I feel like I have like a lot of examples. It's almost hard to choose. I'd say one of the sort of first ones that came up was just having rupture in connections, and every bone and every cell in my body, if I had any form of conflict with a friend or a loved one, even if it was minor, my entire body just went into complete somatic overload and complete fight or flight. And that retraining process took a very long time, definitely a good few years of every single time just saying, we're actually safe now. We're actually okay now. And of finding friends and loved ones who could also work with me in that process. That helped a lot. But there were so many, even to get to that point, there were so many defenses that would even prevent me from even acknowledging it or sharing it with others. So that's, the first part of the battle, beyond awareness. Yeah, that was a big one for me, and learning how to stay in conflict and repair with people and not go into, fear and then flight, really, which is what I would have done in the past.
Have there been any monumental moments in that adjustment? I know it's a long-term process, but were there is there any moments that are like, oh wow, and then this happened that really shifted something big after building the foundation for a while?
There's a part of me that really wants to answer you with a yes. Fuck yeah, there was this amazing monumental aha fireworks moment. But what I've found with all of healing in general, is that it's so much quieter and more subtle. And baby steps along the way. That yes, I have had the occasional big aha moment, but those are few and far between compared to the just, you're trudging along, you're doing what you can do, you're repeating the same process again and again and again until it really finally lands in your body.
Yeah, even asking you that question and then hearing your response, I was brought to my own experience in it, where it is a slow process and the repeating of things, But then there is a moment, or there have been moments in my healing where I actually feel the somatic shift in my body where it locks in.
Mm.
And it's not that something happened in that exact moment that brought it all together. It's just that I had been practicing and retraining for so long that my body finally was like, okay, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess when I ask about monumental moments, like I think of those moments, but yeah, your answer really directed me back to the truth of it, that it is a slow building process.
It is, and I think if there were a way to track it, there isn't yet, but if there were a way to track it, we would see that actually we are somatically making shifts every time that we repeat those processes, but it's so minuscule, less than a millimeter each and every time, that by the time our whole system, let's say our entire physical body, is regulated in a certain situation that would have in the past, quote unquote, triggered us, we can't see that each tiny millimeter has actually been filling us with that sense of safety. We just sort of, boom, feel it. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh shit, it shifted and now I can feel it fully, which, yeah, that's the sort of aha big moment. And every other tiny little millimeter along the way was impactful.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Thank you. Thank you. Question. I'm going to shift a little bit to something different. I'd like to talk a little bit about energy healing before we go into your session, which is coming up. And I'm curious about your relationship with energy healing, maybe both as a practitioner and as a recipient of, and what it means to you.
That's a big question. To energy healing specifically?
Yes.
I have had I'd say, complicated relationship with energy healing. At times, because of sort of the process of my own spiritual awakening, certain forms of energy healing felt like they were just happening, almost in a non-consensual way, from external sources, whether it was my guides or other entities or beings. Then there's the other subset of energy healing that's received from 3D physical humans here. So my relationship with energy healing feels a bit split in that regard. I've also received really beautiful healings from guides and entities that were, outside of me, and have called that in on my own. I think it's something that we all, again, going back to the beginning of our conversation, we all have the innate capacity and ability to use and give and receive. I don't think it's something everyone is called to, and that's fine. But I think that if we relied more on energy and started to see things more from the perspective of energy healing at the root, we would have way less problems in the world in general, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, relational. That if we start at the energetic level for anything, that's really where it's at.
I have been reading this book called Vibrational Medicine, and it's written by a doctor. I actually don't know what he's a doctor in. I should figure that out. But he cites all these scientific experiments looking into our energetic fields, or our auric field, our etheric field, astral, emotional, mental, like all the way up the line. And he can get, like, there's actual concrete evidence of our etheric and maybe a little bit. I think there's even a little of the astral that they can actually scientifically document, and then it gets into these subtle energy realms that they haven't quite been able to have the equipment to document. But the ability to um, what's the word I'm looking for? Presume it isn't. Presume doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Estimate. I don't. Anyway, I think you might get my drift. The other realms above, and doing experiments on that in negative space and time. So we can only measure in positive space and time, and they are measuring in negative space and time. And then that's where all of our really top, like causal and emotional and mental energy systems are that are like 5 feet away from our body.
Mm-hmm.
But all of those feed into each other. So when the causal's healthy, that health goes into the mental, and then the astral, and the emotional, and then the etheric. And the etheric is like basically the blueprint of our body, and then that goes into our physical. And so it just bleeds on the line, health. So keeping those realms, those spheres of our body healthy, will keep us healthy.
Yeah, wow. That brings up a couple of things. I've definitely had that experience. Like in the last year or so, there was something that just kept coming up for me physically, and I didn't quite know what to do with it. And when I was sitting in meditation, I kept on hearing, like, go to your causal body. Go to your causal body. I'm like, my what? Like, oh God, okay. So did some research, talked to a few people, got in there. It's like, okay, there's actually something, there's something amiss. There's an imbalance somewhere in my causal body. And I had worked on this particular issue. It was an issue with a family member in so many other realms. I'd worked with it emotionally, mentally, even sort of in my auric field. I had done all this clearing, whatever. And then I had to even go to that level, to the causal level, to actually ultimately release whatever the pattern was. This just blows my mind. There's so much, like, even with the years that I've been doing this stuff, that there's so much I don't know. And I hope to remain a perpetual student, because it's just fun. It's fun living in the world of magic. And that's the other thing that came up for me as you were speaking, is I'm like, oh, I have some resistance to people doing like finding scientific evidence for, for this magic, in a way. I think it's cool because, again, that can sort of bridge for the people who are a bit more, cerebral, and needing the form of evidence for their mind. And I think so much of what we're being asked to lean into right now is a sense of faith and trust. And in the world of energy medicine and energy magic, personally, I'd rather leave evidence and science outside of it.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too, but I do appreciate the bridge to those who need more of a logical explanation for things, because I really desire for everybody to experience it in a more intentional way. I think everybody's experiencing it, and they may not be aware of it. Like you said, where you were being treated, maybe not with your consent, from higher powers with energy healing. Yeah. So we're going to move into your session here, and I'm wondering if you have an intention for this 13th octave lahochi session.
You and I spoke about this earlier, and my initial instinct, even though my brain doesn't always understand this concept fully, but in my body I do. My physical body, my energy body, I understand this concept. So my intention is to go into and remain in the 0 point field. And from there, receive whatever I need. Yeah.
Excellent. Are you ready?
I am.
Great. Let's do it. We'll be back.
We have returned from Lily's session. Lily, are you open to talking a little bit about what went on during your session for you?
I am. What I noticed right away, as soon as you began your invocations and calling in a variety of guides and angels, of which I am familiar with, this reminder came through my entire body of the power of connection and the power of more than two people or two or more people. Just the rush of the like immediate energy coming in from every entity, being that you were calling in, was so palpable in my body and such a beautiful reminder. And when I call them in on my own, I often don't feel that sort of intense rush, but having someone else call them in for you or with you in a way just adds so much power. So there was such a beauty and a really palpable somatic experience in my body of that. That was really beautiful.
Can I say one thing about that as well? This particular time when I was doing the invocation, I had a rush of emotion run through me, and I almost choked up a little bit while I was doing it. So perhaps that was linked to your experience.
I think it definitely was. I had a really, it felt emotional for me, very, very powerful. Having someone call in protection and assistance for me. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Were there any, well, tell me more.
Yeah.
What other feelings came up? Any emotions, any physical feelings?
A lot of physical sensation. I often feel, I have the sort of normal, I'm putting quotations around that, tingling and energy movement and heat and warmth, and, I've all things like that within my system. Today there were a couple of areas. I was having some pain in my right hip for the last about 48 hours that came on very suddenly, and it was very acute. And as soon as you started working, even at just the top of my head, a lot of pain started to sort of come up and out from that right hip area. And everywhere that you were working, really just in the upper body, actually, there was a lot of energy movement up there, but really the right hip area where there was pain seemed to continue to release throughout the entire session. So that was really interesting and cool, just to, again, like have that landing in my body of the energy, and the energy of love and the healing goes where it needs to go in the body.
What was the release of that pain? What did it feel like? Is it something that moved down your leg and out, or did it just kind of disperse?
It felt like a disperse energy. Yeah, it would sort of like almost like come to a head and then like just sort of float away, and then another layer of the pain would come to a head and then float away. Yeah, so that was
that
really
imagery.
Yeah, that was really, really beautiful, much needed. And yeah, again, just that reminder of like, this is all that we need. We We just need to be in contact, with other people and with loving entities that are available for us to help us heal, to help us remember.
And intention.
Yeah.
Like in the intention and those and the connection that is very important, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was funny, going back to my intention, I went at some point into, what I would consider to be this 0 point field. And I was in this space, and it was, kind of like you see in sci-fi movies where everything is sort of like blown out. Like I imagine sort of like the big, like what the Big Bang may have looked like, this like single point of light, and then all of a sudden everything's just like sort of blown out from there. And I was in that space, and I thought, well, now what? and my mind sort of got kind of active again, and my guide said, you don't really need to be here. Just, it's not an external place in you. And I said, well, what's the internal equivalent? And then I was guided really deep into these caverns in my heart, which I've explored before. And I've found sort of cave upon cave in this little system within my heart center.
Oh, wow.
And so I don't know where you were in your own journey, but for quite a bit, probably somewhere in the middle, I was just sort of sitting in the cave in my heart, and I was sort of dusting things off, and I brought fresh flowers to the altar in my heart, and just kind of reconnecting.
There was a time about in the middle, one of the middle hand positions, where I hold a triangle over with my pointer fingers at your heart space.
Mm-hmm.
And I recall in the midst of doing that, feeling this strong urge to send all the white light of lahochi and blue diamond, Mother Mary blue diamond energy, and the violet flame all in there all at once, and just fill it as full as it could possibly get. And I was doing that for a bit, and then you had this big breath. You went, I really enjoyed that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know what you were doing exactly in that moment, but I definitely felt it. Definitely felt it. I felt all of it, but that moment specifically, I can definitely feel in my system as you describe it. Yeah. Yeah, there was a big filling up. Today felt less about release. There was some release, from like the pain in my hip, but really more just about, filling up, like replenishing, remembering. Yeah, reconnecting.
I'm noticing this is the second time I've done this podcast, and I'm noticing in myself that after the session, I'm actually like light in the head and running out of like the ability to ask questions. It gets smaller and smaller. It's like depleted from me. I'm noticing that right now, and it's really interesting. I'm really with your experience, and I'm almost in this state of I just want to hear story time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also because that space is so you're not cerebral at all, and you're not having to use your mind in a way, and so coming back here and having to think and use that prefrontal cortex in a new way again, it's yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely time is gone, and the space is gone, and it does feel like floating for like an hour and 15 hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing that was really cool when you said a specific invocation of I forget the exact wording. It was like make me, what is it? Make me, is it tall?
Raise me?
Yes, raise me. And I've had this image only once or twice in my life before, where when angels come in and we ask them to basically, like, you know, make us, you know, raise us, or make us, you know, help us remember, embody our angel selves. I saw you each time you said, he said it 3 times, just like you grew like a few feet and then another few feet and another few feet. And so you were just, you know, and the same when you called it in for me, we were just both, you know, I don't know, probably at least 20 feet tall by the end, which is really incredible to feel and to see.
It's like Alice, what did she eat something and gets, or it's a, she eats something and gets taller, or drinks something and gets taller in Alice in Wonderland?
I don't remember. Yeah.
It's like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you saw it as like a feeling of a physical expansion height. I definitely feel when I do that every time, an energy raising and a tingle getting more and more intense in my body, and the surrounding area just being more and more electric. This connection with the angels and the heart of God, and this potent energy that is now being opened up to come down into the space and into us. So exhilarating.
So incredible, just by the power of intention.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there it is. Like, it really is. My brain is not really here right now. That is wild. I want so much to ask more questions.
I want so much to also speak more about my experience, and I'm just blissed out at the moment.
Well, we don't have to talk anymore about the experience. There is another question in there somewhere, and I want to dig it out. I want to feel it. There is one. I was going to ask if you felt like your intention was met, but I think you did say that you went to that space. So that's good to know. Is there, having now experienced, this was your first time experiencing 13th octave lahochi?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything about this modality that feels different than say Reiki or any other energy healing modality that you've experienced?
I would say yes, and yes, it feels different, and it's hard to tell if it's the modality itself or the healer who is channeling whatever modality they're bringing through or have been called to bring through. So I don't know that I can feel a specific, like, what's the word? Tone. Like a tone difference between Reiki and lahochi. There's definitely a difference. And because this was my first experience receiving truly like a full energy session from you, it's hard to understand which is which. Because in a way, I feel like no matter what method or methodology we're using, we are bringing through specific codes, but they're also coming through us. And so because I was receiving a specific code, but through you, it's almost like I'm having the experience of also you. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I've never looked at it this way before. It's something is opening up in me on my perception of energy healing and who you're receiving from, and even the possibility that the same person, to really know the difference to answer my question, you would need to have gotten a full maybe Reiki session from me and a full lahochi session from me, lahochi session.
I will say the one thing I can note is that this felt a bit more fiery. It felt a bit more like, as if we're looking at, like Saint Germain and like the violet flame. It felt more, there was more sort of like flame, fire energy. And even though it didn't feel like a purging session, there was, this really beautiful sort of, I don't know, fiery warmth to it, and a little bit of intensity even, that I don't always feel with Reiki. And again, that could be the modality itself, or it could be you, or it could be the combination of both, or a million other factors.
I feel this is incredible. That perception shift is really landing in me right now. And I'm curious if you've had an experience with a healer where you've had two different modalities from the same healer before.
I have. Yeah. And they didn't feel that different. It felt more like the person's energy was the predominant thing coming through. Whatever the codes are that this specific person or healer is holding is what is coming through more in a way.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. That's not to suggest that it doesn't matter which modality you get from that particular healer. Do you think that each modality would still offer something maybe different?
I'm sort of the mind that the modality doesn't matter.
Cool.
Yeah. I know that might ruffle some feathers or for people who are very attached to their specific modalities, but I really don't feel that the modality itself matters. I think it's how clear of a channel as a healer you're able to become, and your intention of being of service, and the specific codes that your soul carries, like your song, your notes. That is also what is sort of blending with, let's say, the universal healing energy that can be called Reiki. It can be called, lahochi. It could be called a million different things, but the universal healing energy blends with your specific essence, your soul's essence, not the personality Joel and, the personality Lily, but your specific soul essence, your codes, blending with the universal codes to create the healing for this person.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just taking a second to take that in. I have never heard that outlook before, but it feels like there is truth in that. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. And I guess what's coming up in me in response to that is, it does, when you say it doesn't matter what modality, it's just, say the person's soul is drawn to this modality so that its essence its codes, as you say, that person's soul codes or can transmit the healing energy that wants to come through, and it needs to have an open door. And the open door is whatever feels really comfortable in that healer to work with. So that's really interesting.
I mean, Alex, I happen to train in Reiki because something told me go train in Reiki, and I just went for it. But it could have been, 100 other healing modalities. And it probably wouldn't have mattered that much.
Wow. You know what that does for me? There are times when I go in myself. I get caught up in my ego state. I get caught up in I'm not enough, and I think what I need to learn another modality because these aren't enough. These are enough.
Yeah.
That feels really good.
Yeah. Yeah, and going back to the beginning of our conversation, we have a choice now. We don't need to buy into the illusion or the myth. So if your mind says you need to go do another training and learn this other thing, and I have nothing against trainings and learning modalities that feel really aligned for you, that your heart just says like yes to and feels so excited and you get bubbles in your whole body. But for many of us, we continue to get degree upon degree and training upon training when we already have what we need to give. We already have what people need. It's really just our essence, and it's just about saying, here's who I am, world.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with learning more if it's coming from a place of desire to learn more and not a desire to I'm not from a place of I'm not enough and I need more. I had this conversation with someone, I think actually two people at different times recently, where we were talking about what I've learned in the studies that I've done, and then how I'm not a sponge and some things stick to me and some things don't. And then even then, when I try to reiterate and talk to somebody in conversation about what I've learned, I stutter and mumble and I can't find the right words and I don't remember what I learned. But when I'm in the moment with someone and they're going through a moment of healing and they're working on something deep and I am facilitating them, or I'm holding space for them, or I'm just being a friend next to them, I know whatever I need to know, I know in that moment. And it's the thing that they need. And I feel like that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in a way, also kind of like we touched on earlier, maybe we didn't, but I sort of alluded to it. We're moving out of this age of like being more based in our minds. And our minds would not obviously, our minds and egos would say, you need more and you need to, study this and do this in order to fill in the blank. And what you're saying is, no, in these moments where I'm with someone and they have a need, I naturally know how to fill it, right? And that's you being in your heart. That's you being centered in your heart and not needing 10 degrees and certifications and all these things. You just naturally know because you're attuning to your heart and to the universal field of healing around you.
Yeah, it's that. And there is a part of it that is, I remember something that I've read or heard. So there is part of like the learning that I've done that comes in at that moment. It's like, that's what you need. Even if I don't remember it in a conversation 2 days earlier and I'm trying to regurgitate it, in that moment, it's like, oh, that's what it is. So I feel like you're right with, it's a lot of the heart, and there is an essence of stuff that you've learned along the way.
Yeah, and that reminder of like, we'll always have what we need, including information. So like even in my awakening process, a lot of my mind has sort of just started to like drop away, and I just don't have as much, it feels like memory in my memory banks as I used to, which at first was a little alarming. But I am like you in these moments where whatever information I need comes through in the moment that I need it. Yeah.
That is, it's really comforting. It's a comforting thing to release yourself and let go in the trust that what is needed will appear and come through, and that the universe, the angels, God has our back. And if we have an intention of helping someone or ourselves, that we can just, if we're able, and I hope we are, trust that we'll get what we need, and what we need will come through.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'd say 99% of it is the very simple but profound desire to hold someone else in their experience. And then maybe the other 1% is the information, the healing modality, whatever the thing is. But the 99% is so, that in of itself, just showing up to someone with love and care.
Yes.
And learning how to give and receive that freely. So thank you for your love and care today.
And thank you for being with me on this podcast, and for receiving the lahochi from me, and for your insight on things, and your expression, and your love and care that you give people. I love you.
I love you too.
Okay. Is there any last thoughts?
Mm-mm.
Well, then, with that, we're going to wrap up this episode that we had with Lily. And thank you all for listening. And thank you so much, Lily, for being here with me. I really enjoyed talking with you today, and I feel like I learned some stuff that feels really good, and I'm going to ruminate on and sit with for days and weeks to come, I think, and maybe longer.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
And an invitation to all of you out there to make a little room for healing in your life. And we'll see you or talk to you next time. Bye.